Hey, welcome back to the channel. Brandon with Davidson Audio. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of a myth busting episode to see if upgrading your power wire from the battery to your starter solenoid wire and upgrading the starter solenoid to the starter wire actually makes a difference. So what brought this topic on is the fact that we were on the page one day and I saw that one of the members did quite the extensive write-up on it. So what I wanted to do was go ahead and upgrade the power wires from the battery right here to the starter solenoid, and from the starter solenoid down to the fuse block, and then from the starter solenoid to the actual starter itself, to see if it will actually make a difference in starting the bike. From the video and the pictures that the member posted, he had showed with the clamp on and with audio video of it made a notable and actually huge big difference in the bike starting or not, or starting hard per se, let's say. Because as you all know, that these Indian Challengers, they do struggle a little bit when starting. So what we want to do is we're going to do a very similar test ourselves. What we're going to do first is, to make it completely even, we have a Braille AGM battery in this bike right now. It is completely cold. We haven't started. I think the first time we started was this morning, which was about 8 hours ago. So the bike's bone cold. We are going to put a clamp-on ammeter on it. We're going to start it and we're going to watch the ammeter to see what kind of current's drawn through the bike and how the bike audibly sounds trying to start. Then we're going to show you the process of how to replace these two wires. And then from there, we're going to do the same thing with starting the bike with the clamp-on ammeter and audibly, to see if there's actually a difference. And if this is actually a product that we're going to want to start making and selling to y'all to make your lives easier. Because here at Davidson Audio, we only use high-quality oxygen-free wire here with good shrink tube ends and crimps and the whole 9 yards. So let's go ahead and get the clamp-on ammeter and get set up so we can give it a cold start, and then we'll get it installed. All right, so now we're down at the battery. I'm kind of just like laying here, but we have our Fluke clamp-on ammeter here. So if you're not familiar with these, it's a multimeter in the bottom, but also right here you can clamp this around a wire and read the volt or the ampacity going through this meter. So what we're going to do is we're going to clamp this around the main battery wire right here that goes to the starter solenoid, and we're going to start it and see what kind of amperage is drawn through this wire, and we're going to test that to our upgraded 4-gauge wire. Because right now this wire right here is about an 8-gauge, and then off of that comes about a 12-gauge to the fuse block, and then 8-gauge down to the actual starter. So let's go ahead and get this switched over to amps. And then we're going to get it clamped on this wire right here and hopefully be able to read it. So the bike's priming. Went up to 0.5 amp and Alrighty, so we had a good little jump up there, and she did struggle quite a bit to start, which is very typical of the Indian Challengers. I know my bike does it, and every bike I've been around does the same thing with the Challengers, especially when they're bone cold. So we're going to go through, we're going to yank this battery out, we're going to yank these wires out of here, put this wire back in there, and then see just what kind of difference it is. And then hopefully we'll be able to put a side-by-side comparison of the two voltages to see what kind of ampacity that it pulls. So let's go ahead and get this stuff yanked out, get the wires put in there, put it back in, and then give it another try. The first part of this is obviously the battery. We're going to take the battery off so that way we get more room to get this wire out of here, get the solenoid out, and then take the wires off of here, and then there's another wire here, and we'll show you in a different angle, but the starter is right back here, which I'm touching the stud right there. So let's go ahead and get this battery out and then keep on going. All right, so now we are going to, I'm gonna try it in a different order. We're gonna just try to go for it. So you're gonna need a 10 millimeter socket, 10 millimeter wrench possibly, and I'm fairly certain this is a 5. The starter is right down here. So there's a bolt right here, which is the starter wire. So we're gonna break this loose, and I'm gonna try to feed this wire up back through. So when we pull the starter solenoid out, we'll fish this up through. So back up here. Oh yeah, let's just, oh, that's what the wrench is for. Yep, 10 millimeter like you said. Take that nut loose. I'm going to put it back on here because knowing me, I will drop it and lose it. So cool, we're off there. Now let's come back up here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take the 2 5 millimeter Allens out. You gotta go through this hole for one, and then over here is the other one, because this is the starter solenoid right here. So you have a power coming from the battery on the brake side of this, and then on the clutch side of it is what goes to the starter. And then also off of the brake side is where the 10 gauge or 12 gauge wire goes to here. All right, so now we're going to take this loose, come through here first, and you just gotta try to, I don't know, let me get my fat noggin in here real quick. Yeah, there it is. So this one, and hopefully try not to, oh, there we go. See if it doesn't fit through there, so. Boom, there you go. In here. So now we are going to try to work this out. And which wire is it back here? There's a notch, there it is. Just gotta pop this out of the notch back here. There we go. Oh, no, that's the other wire. Oh, there it is. That's the OEM ground. So let's, there we go. Okay, so that's that, and now this gives us access to pull the 2-pin connector off of here. Just lift up on the tab and pull it out. There we go. Now that gives us access to our one more 10 millimeter back here, which is for this distribution block right here. All right, so with that loose, you can now remove your 10, that's either a 10 or a 12 gauge wire off of there. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer these wires over to, or transfer our new wires onto this and start getting this reinstalled in the reverse order. All right, so now we are gonna show you what we're replacing it with and give you a little side-by-side comparison. So here is your starter solenoid itself. So obviously this comes from the battery all the way to here. This is a pretty solid, you know, stout 8 gauge wire. And then here's a nice 12 or 10 gauge wire that goes from here, it's in the same grip, down to the fuse block. And then here is the 8 gauge that goes down to the starter. As you can see, we beef it up quite a bit from an 8 gauge to a 4 gauge. Most of this is the insulation, so you can even see we're quite a bit beefier. And then here is going to be this replacement wire. So, and we even went as far to put a nice little 90 on it at the battery, so that way when you come from the top of it, you can just land it right there. And if you have any accessories, it makes it a lot easier to hook up. So this will replace it just like that. And there's that wire. So let's go ahead and take these two 10 millimeters off. We'll replace them with our wires. And what we did here too, as you can see, we have these oriented the opposite way. The reason we did that is when you go off of this starter solenoid and you go back to the starter, when you bend it down, that puts this in the right orientation to land right on the starter. So we kind of thought ahead on this one and wanted to do that. And we also made all of ours red because this is a power wire, it's not a ground. And I just want to make sure anybody that does this after the fact doesn't mix up this as a ground or whatever you can do. So try to make it army proof and make it easier for y'all. So let's go and get this taken apart. Replaced here, and I was advised from my fellow technician here that's working with us, Mr. Wade Wilson, that he doesn't think I can put it back in here all pre-assembled, so we're going to put it back together just to kind of hopefully prove him wrong, and if not, then I'm going to have to swallow my pride and say you were right. So we're going to give it a hell of a try, so let's get back to put it in there in reverse order. So alright, so to reinstall this is going to be the reversed order. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by installing the new 10 gauge wire right here to this stud, and then we are going to fish the starter wire itself through the back and loosely put the two Allens in here, the 6s which is located there and here. You got to go through here for one of them, and loosely put those until we land all the wires, and we're going to torque it down in. So let's do this. Now I am over here on the side of the bike, and the only reason I'm doing this is because I don't want anybody in the comments to be like, oh, you had the bike running while before the video was shot, because if this turns over any easier, I don't want anybody to sit here and be like, oh, you just had the bike warmed up, that's why it started easier. So this bike has the Sawicki full exhaust 2-in-1 mid-length pipe. So as y'all know, this bike has 0 heat shields on it anywhere. So there's no heat shields on this thing. So my hand, the back of it, bone cold. If it was hot at all, and we'll hold it here so people aren't like, oh, it's bone cold. Nothing on here is hot, engine's not hot, anything. Super cold. So we're gonna go down now to the battery, put the clamp on ammeter back on it, and we're gonna have Mr. Wade Wilson give it a crank over. We'll watch the amp meter, see what kind of amp draw is on it, and see if there's an audible difference and ease of start. So let's go on down there. All right, so again, we're down at the battery. Same Fluke 323 amp meter, so we're gonna flip it to amperage, use the clamp on, and again, the same battery. Now our upgraded power wire here for the battery to starting solenoid to the starter. That's all we've done. So everything else has stayed the same. So let's go ahead and clamp this on here. We'll get a good focus on that, and when we're told to go, all right, go ahead, Mr. Wade. All right, so before we wrap up this video, I want to take the time to go over what we found and see if there's any truth behind this upgrade, or if we kind of feel that it's more myth and not worth the install. So this is a kit that we made because we saw a video on one of the Indian Challenger pages where a individual upgraded these two wires and posted that it was a huge improvement. The bike started way easier and it allowed more current through there. With that being said, what did we find? We did see an increase in about 4 amps that were able to be pulled through it. I think originally we were at about 38 and a half. We got up to 41 and a half, so that's about almost 4 amp difference, which is allowing more power to be pulled to the actual starter itself. But we did notice, and you'll hear it in the video, it didn't start any easier. It kind of sounded like it was lugging to get started. So what we did is, this is on my personal shop bike here and our other shop bike here that I'm on as well. This is not mine, so we have two identical Challengers. One's got cams, one doesn't. So we're going to be taking a road trip. We're going to see just how, if it does make a difference while we're riding, and check out stuff like that. Now, this isn't going to help the charging system at all, because that's a completely different system. They're not intertwined together, and I don't think there's a possibility for us to open that up and increase that wiring size. So we're simply trying to attack the initial draw of the starter on the bike. So personally, I'd have to say I think that video that person did is busted. What he advertised, I don't think is the game that you're going to actually get. The only thing I can say, and I'm not by any means calling that person a liar that he did something. The only thing I can think of is that he might have started the bike a couple of times, and after starting it and letting it run, the bike was warmed up already. So at that point, when he did that final video and started it, the bike's going to start a lot easier. I could do it right now if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. With that being said, we're going to make a handful of these kits. So if anybody's interested in one, let us know. I don't know the pricing right now. We're going to make a couple of them. I'm going to do it on this bike. I'm going to do it on my Chieftain, just to try it out and see what happens. So yeah, that's a wrap for this video. But do not forget, we are getting closer and closer and closer to 1,500 subscribers. At the point in this video, I'm very certain we're going to be knocking on that door. So please do us a favor, subscribe to this video, our channel. Make sure you like this video. Leave us a comment to know what we are doing good that you like, and then what you don't like, and then also suggestions for future videos. And then also share our content. Make sure you hit that bell so you're notified for future videos. But again, it's not all about myself. It's not all about Davidson Audio here. Please go over and show some love to Mad Monkey Motorsports and Hoonies Garage, because it's because of the two of those and their passion for the Indian motorcycle platform that we're doing this that we're able to do this giveaway. So if you don't remember, the 1,500 subscriber giveaway is a free ECU tune on the three of us. And again, it doesn't have to be just Indian. They do multiple platforms, but you have to wait to our next video when we actually sit down with those fine gentlemen, talk with them, kind of pick their brains a little bit more. So with that being said, Brandon with Davidson Audio, and we're out.